Captain Maria Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the colony ship Indomitable, watching the stars blur past the viewport. They had been traveling for 3 months now, carrying 15,000 colonists to their new home on Proxima Terra. The ship was massive, built like a flying fortress with layers of thick steel armor and enough backup systems to make any engineer proud. "Captain, we're picking up something strange," said Lieutenant Chen from the sensor station. His voice carried a note of concern that made Maria immediately alert. "What kind of strange?" Maria asked, walking over to look at his console. "Multiple contacts. They just appeared out of nowhere. Their energy signatures are... I've never seen anything like this before." Chen's fingers danced across his controls, trying to make sense of the readings. Maria felt her heart rate increase. In all of human space exploration, they had never encountered alien life. Until now, it seemed.
"How many ships?"
5. No, wait, 7. They're surrounding us. Chen looked up at her with wide eyes. "Captain, they're hailing us. Put it through." The main screen flickered to life, showing a creature that looked like a cross between a mantis and a lizard. Its scales shimmered with an oily rainbow sheen, and its 4 eyes regarded them with what seemed like contempt. When it spoke, the translation software struggled for a moment before finding equivalent words. "Primitive vessel, you have entered Vrex Confederation space without permission. Power down your engines and prepare to be boarded. Resistance will result in your immediate destruction." Maria straightened her uniform. "This is Captain Maria Rodriguez of the human colony ship Indomitable. We mean no harm. We were unaware this space was claimed. We're simply passing through to reach our destination." The Vrex commander's mandibles clicked together in what might have been laughter. "Ignorance is no excuse. You will comply or be destroyed. You have 60 seconds. The screen went dark. Maria looked around at her crew. They were scared, she could see it in their faces. But they were also ready. Every person on this ship had trained for emergencies, for the worst-case scenarios that might never happen. Except now one was happening. "Battle stations," Maria ordered quietly. "All civilians to the core shelters. Engineering, I need every backup system online. Weapons, load all tubes." "Captain, they have particle beam weapons," Chen reported. "Our shields won't hold against that kind of firepower for long." "I know," Maria said. She pressed the ship-wide intercom. "All hands, this is the captain. We've encountered a hostile alien force. They've given us an ultimatum, surrender or die. But we didn't come all this way, carrying all these dreams and families to give up at the first sign of trouble. The Indomitable was built tough. She was built to survive. And by God, that's exactly what we're going to do. Hold on tight, everyone. This is going to be rough." The Vrex ships opened fire exactly 60 seconds later. Brilliant green beams of concentrated particles slammed into the Indomitable's shields. The energy barriers flared bright white, trying to disperse the incredible heat and force. Alarms wailed across the bridge as power consumption spiked. "Shields at 60%, Chen shouted over the noise. 40%, 20%. Shields down! The particle beams struck the ship's hull directly. On a Vrex vessel or any other council ship, that would have been the end. Their ships were built light and fast, relying almost entirely on shields for protection. Once those failed, the thin hulls would vaporize in seconds. But the Indomitable was human-built. The outer armor layer, 30 centimeters of ablative composite, absorbed the first impacts. It blackened and burned, but it held. Beneath that was another 20 centimeters of ceramic titanium alloy. Below that, steel reinforced with carbon nanotubes. And below that, a honeycomb structure filled with self-sealing foam that could stop a breach from spreading. "Hull integrity at 85%, reported the damage control officer. "Outer armor taking heavy damage but holding. Inner hull untouched." Maria allowed herself a grim smile. "Return fire. All railguns, maximum rate. Missiles away." The Indomitable shuddered as its weapons came to life. 12 railguns, each capable of launching solid tungsten slugs at a significant fraction of light speed, opened up on the Vrex ships. At the same time, 300 missiles roared from their tubes, their chemical rockets pushing them toward the enemy fleet. The Vrex commander watched in confusion as the primitive ship continued to function. His screen showed it should have been destroyed. The particle beams had struck the hull directly. Nothing should survive that. Yet the human vessel was not only intact, it was fighting back. "Evasive maneuvers," he ordered. "Raise shields to maximum." The Vrex ships were fast, much faster than the lumbering human colony ship. They dodged most of the missiles, their point defense systems shooting down the rest. The railgun fire seemed easy to avoid at first. After all, they were just solid projectiles. Simple kinetics. Any modern ship could track and evade such primitive weapons, but there were so many of them. And they were so fast. The first slug caught a Vrex destroyer amidships. The ship's shields, designed to disperse energy weapons, did almost nothing against solid matter moving at relativistic speeds. The tungsten penetrator punched straight through the shield as if it wasn't there, then through the thin hull, then out the other side. The destroyer split in two. "Impossible," the Vrex commander screamed. "All ships, maximum firepower. Destroy that vessel now." 6 Vrex ships concentrated their fire on the Indomitable. The human ship's armor began to fail under the sustained assault. Whole sections glowed white-hot and sloughed away. Hull breaches appeared in a dozen places, but the ship kept fighting. "Engineering to bridge," came a voice over the intercom. "Main power reactor is damaged. Switching to secondary fusion plant. We're good for another hour at least. Medical to bridge. We've got casualties in Section 7. Bulkhead sealed successfully. No decompression in the core. Weapons to bridge. Railgun 3 is offline. The rest are still firing. Reloading missiles." Maria watched the tactical display as another Vrex ship took a railgun hit. This one didn't explode immediately, but she could see it listing trailing atmosphere and debris. A third Vrex vessel maneuvered to protect its damaged companion, and took a missile salvo meant for the flagship. The warheads, filled with simple high explosives and shrapnel, ripped into its hull. The Vrex commander couldn't believe what he was seeing. 3 of his ships were destroyed or disabled, and the human vessel was still operational. It looked like hell, covered in burn marks and holes, leaking atmosphere from multiple breaches, but it was still shooting. Still advancing even. How was this possible? What kind of insane species built ships like this? "All ships withdraw," he ordered. "Fall back to the rally point. We need reinforcements." The surviving Vrex ships turned and fled, their superior speed carrying them quickly out of range. On the bridge of the Indomitable, a ragged cheer went up from the crew. They had survived. They had won against impossible odds and superior technology. Maria slumped in her command chair, suddenly exhausted. "Damage report. 37% of outer hull compromised. Multiple systems damaged but functional. We've got backups for everything critical. Casualties are light, mostly minor injuries. We can make repairs and continue to Proxima Terra, Captain." Maria nodded slowly. Then she opened a new comm channel, broadcasting on all frequencies. "To whoever's listening out here, this is Captain Maria Rodriguez. We're humans. We're new to this neighborhood and we don't want trouble. But if you come at us again, remember this. We build our ships to survive. We don't surrender. We don't break easy. And we don't stop." She closed the channel and looked at her crew. "Get me engineering. We've got a lot of repairs to make and I want to know everything we learned from this fight. Something tells me word is going to spread about what happened here today." Somewhere in the depths of space, the Vrex commander was composing a report to his superiors. He struggled to find the right words to describe what he had witnessed. Finally, he settled on a simple statement that would soon echo throughout the Galactic Council. "These ships, they're fucking unstoppable." The Galactic Council chamber was a masterpiece of architectural beauty. Crystalline towers reached toward a domed ceiling that displayed the stars themselves, captured through quantum imaging. Representatives from 43 species sat in their designated sections, their various forms requiring everything from water tanks to methane clouds to simple chairs. Today, they were all focused on one thing: the humans. Chief Analyst Threlnox of the Kalashi Union stepped onto the central platform. Her 6 legs moved with practiced grace, and her translucent wings caught the light as she activated the holographic display. She had spent 3 weeks analyzing every scrap of data from the Vrex encounter, and what she had discovered both fascinated and terrified her. "Honored council members," she began, her voice translated into 43 languages simultaneously. "I have completed my analysis of the species that calls itself humanity. What I'm about to share with you will challenge everything we understand about ship construction and space warfare." The hologram flickered to life, showing a rotating image of the Indomitable. Gasps and sounds of disgust rippled through the chamber. The ship looked primitive, almost barbaric. Thick slabs of metal covered every surface. No elegant curves or efficient designs. It looked like someone had taken a building and bolted rocket engines to it. This is a typical human colony vessel, Threlnox continued. At first glance, it appears crude, wasteful even. The armor alone accounts for 40% of the ship's mass. By our standards, this is incredibly inefficient. Ambassador Kelvin of the Vrex Confederation stood up, his scales rattling with agitation. Inefficient is putting it mildly. It's idiotic. All that mass could be used for better shields, faster engines, more powerful weapons. Instead, they wasted on thick metal plating like savages. Threlnox's antennae twitched, the Kalashi equivalent of a smile. That's what we thought too, Ambassador. Until we examined where humans come from. The hologram changed, now showing a blue and green planet. Earth. Beautiful from space, but Threlnox's analysis told a different story. She brought up data streams that made several council members recoil. The human homeworld is classified as a Class 9 death world. For context, most council species evolved on Class 2 or 3 worlds. The Vrex homeworld, considered harsh by many standards, is a Class 4. She let that sink in before continuing. Earth has weather patterns that can level entire cities in minutes. Hurricanes, tornadoes, tsunamis. The planet's tectonic plates are highly active, causing earthquakes and volcanic eruptions regularly. Temperature ranges from -40 degrees to +50 degrees Celsius in different regions. But that's not the worst part, Threlnox said, pulling up new data. Humans evolved as persistence hunters. They're not the strongest predator on their planet. Not the fastest. Not the most venomous. They survived by being stubborn. They would chase prey until the prey literally died of exhaustion. They would keep going when any sensible creature would give up. She zoomed in on human history. Look at their development. They invented the wheel, then immediately started wondering what would happen if it broke. So they invented the spare wheel. They created ships to sail their oceans. Knowing that most would sink, they built them anyway, with watertight compartments and backup navigation systems. When they reached space, they didn't trust their technology. Every spacecraft has multiple redundant systems. Backup power, backup life support, backup communications. Ambassador Kelvin clicked his mandibles dismissively. So they're paranoid. That doesn't explain how their ships withstand our particle beams. It explains everything, Threlnox replied. We build our ships assuming they'll work perfectly. We optimize for efficiency. Humans build their ships assuming everything will fail. They optimize for survival. She brought up schematics of the Indomitable next to a Vrex destroyer. The contrast was stark. The Vrex ship had a powerful shield generator, impressive engines, devastating weapons. But the hull was thin, relying entirely on the shields for protection. Once those failed, the ship was done. The human ship was different. Layer after layer of protection, armor that could ablate away under fire, self-sealing foam that stopped hull breaches, compartmentalized sections that could be sealed off if damaged. Multiple power sources, multiple life support systems, multiple everything. They call it redundancy, Threlnox explained. We call it wasteful. But here's what we missed. It works. When you destroyed their shields, you barely scratched them. When you damaged their primary systems, secondary systems took over. You threw everything you had at them and they survived. More than survived, they won. She pulled up recordings from the battle. Council members watched in uncomfortable silence as Vrex ships were torn apart by simple kinetic weapons. Solid pieces of metal moving fast. Nothing fancy. Nothing elegant. Just raw physics and overwhelming force. Their weapons are equally revealing, Threlnox continued. We use particle beams, plasma cannons, antimatter torpedoes. Complex weapons that require significant power and sophisticated targeting. Humans use railguns and missiles. Why? Because they're simple. Because they're reliable. Because they work even when everything else fails. They have a saying, she added. Keep it simple, stupid. They actually insult themselves to remember this principle. They built an entire civilization on the assumption that Murphy's Law is real. Murphy's Law? Asked Ambassador Earl of the Trell Cooperative. An ancient human axiom. If something can go wrong, it will go wrong. They don't just acknowledge this possibility. They plan for it. They embrace it. Their entire engineering philosophy is built around controlled failure. Threlnox brought up human ship designs from their brief history of space travel. Even their earliest vessels had backup systems. Their space stations had escape pods for every single person aboard. Their military ships had armor even when they could barely afford it. They always always assumed the worst would happen. Now let's discuss their tactical doctrine, Threlnock said, pulling up analysis of the battle. We noticed something interesting. Captain Rodriguez never tried to run. The Indomitable is slower than Vrek ships. She could have attempted to flee hoping to escape. She didn't. Instead, she charged forward. Suicide, Ambassador Kelvin muttered. No. Strategy. Humans have a concept called fighting through the ambush. If you're attacked, you don't retreat into the kill zone. You advance through it, taking damage but getting to the other side where you can fight effectively. It's insane by our standards. It's pure human logic by theirs. Threlnox paused, letting her next words carry full weight. Here's what concerns me most. This was a colony ship, a civilian vessel. It wasn't designed for war. It was designed to carry families to a new world. If their civilian ships can do this to our military vessels, what can their actual warships do? The chamber fell silent. No one had considered that. The ship that had defeated Vrek's task force wasn't even a warship. It was the equivalent of a passenger liner with some guns bolted on. I accessed human data transmissions, Threlnox continued. They have military vessels. Ships called destroyers, cruisers, battleships. These are designed specifically for combat. They have twice the armor of colony ships. More weapons, faster engines. And they're trained for one purpose, to fight and win against superior odds. She brought up human military doctrine documents. The council members read in growing horror about concepts like acceptable losses, fighting retreat, last stand protocols, and if you're going through hell, keep going. They train for scenarios we consider impossible, Threlnox explained. What happens if you lose shields? What happens if life support fails? What happens if you're outnumbered 10-1? What happens if the captain is killed? They have plans for everything. They practice these disasters regularly. They make failure routines so they know how to handle it. Ambassador Earl leaned forward. Chief Analyst, what are you recommending? Threlnox's wings fluttered, a sign of nervousness. We have 3 options. 1. We declare war on humanity immediately, before they can expand further into the galaxy. 2. We open diplomatic channels and attempt peaceful coexistence. 3. We learn from them. Learn from them? Ambassador Kelvin sounded offended. Learn from primitives. They're not primitives, Threlnox said firmly. They're survivors. And we just learned that in space, survival beats sophistication. Their ships may look crude, but they work. They keep working when ours fail. We've been building ships for aesthetic beauty and engineering elegance for 10,000 years. They've been building ships to not die for 300 years. And right now, their philosophy is more effective than ours. She closed the hologram. The Vreks encountered 1 human ship and lost 3 vessels with 4 more damaged. If we go to war with humanity, we'll win eventually through sheer numbers. But the cost will be devastating. Every battle will be Pyrrhic. Every victory will cost us ships we can't easily replace. They'll make us bleed for every meter of space. Or, she continued, we could try to understand them, adopt some of their methods, not abandon our technology but add their redundancy, not give up our elegant designs but add practical backup systems, learn why they build the way they do. The choice is yours, Honored Council, but I'll leave you with one final thought. Threlnox's voice dropped. The humans have a word for ships that can take impossible damage and keep fighting. They call them unsinkable. They used it for a ship called Titanic, which then sank on its maiden voyage. You know what humans learned from that? They didn't stop building ships. They didn't give up on the ocean. They just added more lifeboats, more watertight compartments, more backup systems. Then they kept sailing. That's what we're dealing with, a species that learns from failure and keeps going. A species that plans for disaster and survives anyway. A species that builds ships we can't kill without losing our own. She bowed and left the platform, leaving the council to debate humanity's fate. Outside the chamber, her assistant approached her. Do you think they'll choose peace? The young Kalashi asked. Threlnox looked at the stars through a nearby window. Somewhere out there, humanity was building more ships, each one a fortress, each one refusing to die easily. I hope so, she said quietly, because if they choose war, I'm not sure who the real victors will be. You can't defeat someone who refuses to stop. You can only tire yourself out trying. Admiral Jiang Wei stood in the command center deep beneath the surface of Luna, Earth's moon. Around him, holographic displays showed the deployment of the Council fleet. 200 ships, the largest force the Galactic Council had assembled in 3,000 years. And they were headed straight for Earth. The Council had made their choice. War. Sir, we're receiving their final transmission, said Commander Jackson, his voice tight with tension. Put it through. The face of High Chancellor Vexron appeared on the main screen. The reptilian leader's scales were puffed up in a display of dominance. Humans of Earth, this is your final warning. You have violated Council space. You have destroyed Council ships. You have refused to submit to Council authority. Surrender now, dismantle your fleet, and accept Council governance. You have 12 hours to comply. Failure to do so will result in the complete occupation of your system. The transmission ended. Admiral Zhang looked around at his staff. They were afraid. Everyone was afraid. 200 advanced warships against humanity's 30 defenders. The math wasn't in their favor. But math had never stopped humans before. Send the recall signal, Zhang ordered. I want every ship we have in the solar system within 6 hours. Every captain, every crew member. This is what we trained for. He pressed the button for fleet-wide communication. His face appeared on every human vessel, every station, every military installation in the system. This is Admiral Zhang Wei. By now you all know what's coming. The Galactic Council has sent a fleet to force our surrender. They think we'll give up because they have more ships. They think we'll back down because their technology is more advanced. They think we'll submit because we're new to this galaxy. Zhang paused, letting his words sink in. They're wrong. They don't understand us. They don't know what humans are capable of when we're backed into a corner. They don't know that we've been fighting against impossible odds since we crawled out of caves on Earth. They don't know that we've never been the biggest or the strongest or the fastest, but we've always been the most stubborn. He could see faces on the smaller screens, crews on different ships watching him. Young faces, old faces, scared faces, determined faces. Today we defend our home. Not just Earth, but the principle that we bow to no one, that we choose our own path, that we stand on our own terms or not at all. The Council wants us to roll over and accept their rule. I say we show them what happens when you threaten humanity. Zhang's voice grew harder. We're going to hurt them. We're going to make them regret coming here. And we're going to make sure that every species in this galaxy knows one thing. You don't mess with Earth. You don't mess with humanity. Because we build our ships to last, we train our people to fight, and we never ever give up. He ended the transmission and turned to his tactical officer. Commander Park, status on the fleet? All 30 ships responding, sir. We have 12 destroyers, 8 cruisers, 6 battleships, and 4 dreadnoughts. The dreadnoughts are arriving from Jupiter Station now. 8 to 4 hours, Zhang nodded. The dreadnoughts were humanity's newest class of warship. Massive vessels built specifically after analyzing the Virex encounter. If the Council thought the Indomitable was tough, they hadn't seen anything yet. Deploy the defense satellites. Activate all orbital platforms. I want every piece of metal we have ready to fight. Sir, we're also getting volunteer civilian ships, cargo haulers, mining vessels, even some private yachts. They want to help. Zhang felt a surge of pride. That was humanity in a nutshell. When faced with extinction, everyone wanted to fight. Tell them to stay back but keep their transponders on. If we fail, they'll be the last line of defense, and they might buy time for evacuations. 6 hours later, the Council fleet arrived at the edge of Earth's solar system. High Chancellor Vexron looked at the tactical display with satisfaction. 30 human ships faced his 200. This would be over quickly. All ships advance. Destroy any vessel that resists. Disable and capture any that surrender, he ordered. The Council fleet moved forward in a perfect formation, a wall of sophisticated warships bristling with advanced weapons. They were confident. They had overwhelming numbers and superior technology. What could possibly go wrong? Admiral Zhang watched them come. Hold position. Let them get closer. I want them well within our defensive perimeter. Sir, they're entering weapons range, Commander Park reported. Hold. The Council ships continued advancing, probably expecting the humans to either flee or surrender. They did neither. Sir, they're targeting our lead ships. Hold. Zhang could feel the tension on the bridge. Every instinct screamed to open fire first, to take the initiative. But Zhang had a different plan. Sir, they're firing. Hundreds of particle beams lanced across space, targeting the human dreadnoughts at the front of the formation. The massive ship's shields flared and failed within seconds, just as expected. The beams struck armor that was half a meter thick in places. The dreadnoughts shrugged off the hits. Now, Zhang said calmly, All ships open fire. Defense satellites activate. Show them what Earth looks like when she's angry. The response was devastating. 30 human warships unleashed everything they had. Railguns that had been charging for the past hour fired at maximum power. Missiles erupted from every tube. And the hidden defense satellites, disguised as orbital debris, came to life all around the Council fleet. High Chancellor Vexron watched in horror as his perfect formation fell apart. Human railgun slugs moving at relativistic speeds punched through ship after ship. The Council vessel's shields might as well have been paper. Missiles swarmed through the fleet, overwhelming point defenses through sheer numbers. Evasive maneuvers. All ships scatter, Vexron ordered, but it was too late. The humans had waited until the Council fleet was bunched together, maximizing the effectiveness of their weapons. 3 Council ships exploded in the first 30 seconds. 5 more went dark, dead in space. A dozen others showed critical damage. Return fire. Concentrate on their dreadnoughts, Vexron screamed. The Council fleet rallied, pouring fire into the human ships. The 4 dreadnoughts took the brunt of the assault. Their armor glowed white-hot under sustained particle beam bombardment. Sections of hull plating boiled away. Breaches appeared along their flanks. But the dreadnoughts kept fighting. "Sir, this is Dreadnought Defiance," a voice came over Zhang's comm. "We've lost primary power and 40% of our armor. Switching to secondary reactor. Still in the fight." "Defiance confirmed," Zhang replied. Then he addressed the fleet. "All ships target their command vessel. I want that flagship out of action." 12 human destroyers broke formation, accelerating toward the Council flagship. They took fire from every direction, their armor scarred and burning. But they didn't stop. They were smaller, more maneuverable, and they had one job: get close enough to hurt the flagship. High Chancellor Vexron watched the human ships approach, absorbing damage that should have destroyed them 3 times over. "What are they made of?"
he whispered.
The destroyers opened fire at point-blank range. Railgun slugs tore into the flagship's shields, then its hull. Missiles exploded against its command tower. The flagship shuddered under the assault. "Evacuate the bridge!" Vexron ordered. "All crew to emergency stations." But before they could move, a railgun slug punched through the bridge viewport. The sudden decompression sucked half the command crew into space. Vexron grabbed a support beam, his scales scraping against metal as he held on. Emergency bulkheads slammed shut, sealing the breach. Vexron pulled himself to a secondary console, his hands shaking. Around him, the remains of his command staff lay scattered. He pulled up the tactical display with growing dread. The battle had been raging for 20 minutes. 20 minutes, and already he had lost 40 ships. 40! The humans had lost 2 destroyers and 1 cruiser was badly damaged and pulling back. 3 ships. They had lost 3 ships while destroying or disabling 40 of his. "All ships withdraw," Vexron ordered hoarsely. "Fall back to minimum safe distance. Request immediate reinforcements from Council space." The Council fleet began to retreat, but the humans weren't letting them go easily. They pursued, still firing, still inflicting damage. 5 more Council ships fell before the rest escaped to safety. On the bridge of his command center, Admiral Zhang watched the enemy flee. His fleet was battered. Every ship showed damage. The Dreadnought Defiance was barely mobile, kept alive only by its backup systems, but they had won. "Status report," Zhang ordered. 2 destroyers destroyed, crews evacuated successfully. 1 cruiser heavily damaged but repairable. All other ships operational, though they'll need significant repairs. Enemy losses estimated at 45 ships destroyed or disabled. Zhang nodded slowly. The cost had been high, but they had proven something important. They had proven that humanity could stand against the galaxy, that their ships, built tough and stubborn, could win against superior numbers. "Broadcast this message on all Council frequencies," Zhang said. He waited while the channel opened, knowing the entire Council fleet would hear him. "This is Admiral Zhang Wei of Earth Defense Fleet. You came to our home. You threatened our people. You thought we would surrender because you had more ships. You were wrong. Go back to your council. Tell them what happened here. Tell them that Earth doesn't bow. Tell them that humanity doesn't break. And tell them that if they come again, we'll be ready." He closed the channel and looked at Commander Park. "Get repair crews working on all ships. I want us ready for round 2 within 48 hours. "Sir, do you think they'll come back?" Zhang looked at the retreating Council fleet on the display. "They'll come back. They have to. We embarrassed them. Beat them with inferior numbers. They can't let that stand. But next time, they'll be more careful. They'll bring more ships. They'll plan better. And we'll still win? Chang smiled grimly. We'll still be here. Still fighting. Still refusing to quit. That's what we do, Commander. That's what humans have always done. We get knocked down and we get back up. We take losses and we keep fighting. They have better technology, but we have something they don't understand. We have nothing to lose and everything to fight for. He looked out at Earth, hanging beautiful and blue in the view screen. This is our home, our planet, our people, and we'll defend it with everything we have, no matter the cost. That's the human way. That's why our ships are unstoppable. Not because they can't be destroyed, but because we keep building them. Keep crewing them, keep fighting with them, no matter what. Far away, High Chancellor Vexeron sat in the ruins of his flagship's bridge, composing a message to the Galactic Council. He struggled to explain how 30 ships had defeated 200, how primitive armor had stopped advanced weapons, how stubborn determination had overcome tactical superiority. Finally, he wrote simply, "We underestimated them. These humans, they don't fight like us. They don't think like us. They take damage that would end any other species, and they keep coming. Their ships are basic, but they're built to survive. And survival, it seems, is enough. Request additional forces and new strategy. The humans will not be easily conquered." He sent the message and looked at his damaged fleet limping away from Earth. In the distance, he could see the human ships, battered but unbroken, standing guard over their world. For the first time in his life, High Chancellor Vexeron felt something he never expected to feel. He felt respect for an enemy, and beneath that, something else. Something that made his scales itch. He felt fear. The Kaleshi shipyard orbited their homeworld like a silver flower, its construction base stretching out in perfect geometric patterns. Master Builder Threlko stood in the observation deck, watching as workers completed the final touches on the newest vessel in the Kaleshi Union fleet. It looked wrong. Where once there had been elegant curves and efficient designs, now there were thick slabs of armor plating. Where once shield generators had stood alone, now they were backed up by redundant systems. The ship was heavier, slower, less beautiful than anything the Kaleshi had built in 5,000 years. It was also much harder to kill. Master Builder, Ambassador Iril is here to inspect the vessel, his assistant informed him. Threlkos turned to greet the ambassador, his wings drooping slightly. "Welcome, Ambassador. As you can see, we've completed the modifications according to the new specifications." Ambassador Iril walked slowly around the observation deck, examining the ship from every angle. His mandibles clicked thoughtfully. "It's ugly." "Yes," Threlkos agreed. "It violates every principle of Kaleshi design aesthetics. It's inefficient, wasteful of materials, and mass-heavy. It goes against everything we've learned about ship construction. But will it survive?" Threlkos pulled up the simulation results. "We've run the scenarios 40 times. Against conventional council weapons, this ship will last 3 times longer than our previous designs. The armor absorbs damage that would have punched through to critical systems. The backup power generators mean a single hit won't disable the entire vessel. The compartmentalized hull design means a breach won't doom the ship." He paused, his antennae twitching with mixed emotions. "We've learned from the humans, whether we like it or not." Ambassador Iril nodded slowly. 7 other council species have begun similar programs. The Vrex are completely redesigning their fleet. Even the proud Trell Cooperative has admitted that human methodology has merit. The battle at Earth changed everything. "It did more than that," Threlkos said. "It destroyed 10,000 years of naval doctrine. We thought we had perfected ship design, maximum efficiency, optimal energy distribution, elegant solutions. Then humans showed us that survival beats efficiency every time." He brought up comparative data. "The human dreadnought Defiance took enough damage to destroy 5 of our old-style battleships. It lost primary power, main engines, 60% of its armor, and half its weapon systems. It kept fighting on backup power and secondary weapons. When the battle ended, it was still operational. Still dangerous?" "I read the reports," Ambassador Iril said quietly. "High Chancellor Vexeron described human ships as damage sponges. He said they absorbed fire meant to destroy them and simply refused to die. The Council lost 45 ships and the humans just kept coming." Threlkos pulled up footage from the battle. They watched as human destroyers took hit after hit, their armor glowing white-hot. sections of hull breaking away, and yet they continued their attack runs. One destroyer lost its entire bow section, and still managed to fire its remaining weapons before finally going dark. "This is what we're competing against now," Threlko said. "Not just human ships, but the human mindset. They build expecting failure. They train for disaster. They prepare for the worst case and then figure they'll probably face something even worse than that." Ambassador Earl's translator picked up human transmissions from the battle. He listened to crew reports, damage assessments, and commands. What struck him most was the calmness. When human ships reported catastrophic damage, the crews simply switched to backup systems and kept fighting. There was no panic, no surprise. They had trained for this exact scenario. "It's spreading beyond just ship design," Ambassador Earl observed. "Our military academies are teaching human tactics now. Fighting through ambushes, acceptable loss ratios, last stand protocols, things we never considered before. Because we never had to," Threlko said. "For 10,000 years we fought clean wars. Battles were decided when one side's shields failed. Ships were disabled, not destroyed. Crews evacuated safely. War was almost civilized." "Humans don't fight civilized wars," Ambassador Earl said. "They fight to win, whatever the cost." Across the galaxy, similar conversations were happening on a dozen worlds. The Vrex Confederation had hired human engineering consultants to redesign their entire fleet. The consultants' first recommendation had shocked everyone. Assume every system will fail. Build accordingly. Commander Zektar of the Vrex military stood in a conference room with 3 human engineers. The lead consultant, a woman named Sarah Chen, was explaining the concept of redundancy. "You see this power conduit?" Sarah pointed to a schematic. "It feeds energy to your main weapons. What happens if it gets hit?" "The weapons go offline," Zektar replied. "Exactly. So you need a second conduit, and a third. Route them through different parts of the ship so a single hit can't take them all out. Yes, it's more expensive. Yes, it adds mass. But your weapons keep working even when the ship is falling apart." "That seems excessive," Zektar argued. "The odds of all 3 conduits failing are 100%, Sarah interrupted. "Maybe not in the first battle. Maybe not in the 10th. But eventually, if you fight enough, everything will break. Murphy's Law, Commander. Anything that can go wrong will go wrong. Usually at the worst possible moment." She pulled up battle data from Earth. "Your flagship took damage to its main power grid. The entire ship lost power because everything ran through a single system. One hit knocked you out of the fight. That's a design flaw, not bad luck." Zektar's scales rippled with irritation, but he couldn't argue with the results. "So we add backups to everything?" "To everything critical, yes. Power, life support, engines, weapons, communications. Layer your armor. Compartmentalize your hull. Install blast doors everywhere. Make it so the ship can lose half its systems and still fight." Another human engineer, a man named Marcus Webb, added, "Look, we get it. This goes against everything you've been taught. It seems wasteful and paranoid. But here's the thing. Our paranoia works. Our ships survive. That destroyer that lost its bow? In your fleet, that would have been instant death. For us, it was Tuesday." "Tuesday?" Zektar looked confused. "A joke." "Sort of," Marcus said. "The point is, we expect catastrophic damage. We design for it. When it happens, we're not surprised or overwhelmed. We just follow the procedures we've practiced 1,000 times." Sarah brought up training footage. Human crews running disaster drills, simulated hull breaches, power failures, fire suppressant system malfunctions. Every scenario that could go wrong, they practiced. Over and over until responding to disaster was automatic. "This is what you're really buying," Sarah explained. "Not just ship modifications, but a change in thinking. You have to stop believing your technology will save you. Technology fails. Ships break. Systems malfunction. Accept that, plan for it, and you'll survive. Fight against it. Insist your ship should work perfectly, and you'll die." The training program spread rapidly. Kalishi crews learned to handle system failures. Vrex officers studied human tactics. Trell engineers discovered the value of ugly but functional designs. Throughout Council space, species that had spent millennia perfecting elegant warfare suddenly found themselves learning brutal survival. Not everyone was happy about it. In the Trell Cooperative's Grand Assembly, Senator Kalis spoke passionately against the changes. "We are abandoning our culture. Our ships were works of art, masterpieces of engineering. Now we're building crude boxes covered in metal slabs. We're becoming like the humans, barbaric and unsophisticated. Master Engineer Vossen responded from across the chamber. Better barbaric and alive than sophisticated and dead, Senator. The Council learned this lesson the hard way at Earth. 45 ships destroyed because they were too delicate to survive real combat. Our elegant designs were beautiful right up until human railguns punched through them. We should have sent more ships. Caelius argued. Overwhelming force, not crude modifications. How many ships, Senator? The Council sent 200 and lost 45 while destroying only 3 human vessels. How many more would you sacrifice to your pride? 400? 1,000? The humans will make you pay for every meter of space. They'll bleed you dry while their tough ships keep coming. Vossen pulled up economic data. It's not just military concerns. Human civilian ships are dominating trade routes now. Merchants prefer them because they're reliable. They break down less. When they do break, they limp to port on backup systems instead of stranding in space. Insurance companies are offering better rates for human-built vessels. You see what's happening? Vossen continued. Human engineering philosophy isn't just winning battles. It's winning the peace too. Species are choosing function over form because function keeps them alive and profitable. We can resist this change and become obsolete, or we can adapt and survive. The debate raged for hours, but the outcome was inevitable. The Trell Cooperative began retrofitting their fleet with human-style redundancies. 6 months after the Battle of Earth, the transformation was visible throughout the galaxy. New ships launched from Council shipyards looked different. Thicker armor, more backup systems, compartmentalized designs. They were heavier and less elegant, but they were tougher. Human consultants were the most sought-after experts in the galaxy. They taught survival engineering, redundancy planning, and disaster preparedness. They shared their paranoid worldview. Assume everything will break, plan for total system failure, and never trust that things will work as designed. The Galactic Council established a new ship classification system. Ships were now rated not just on firepower or speed, but on survivability. How much damage could they take? How many backup systems did they have? How long could they fight with critical systems offline? Human ships still topped every survivability chart. Ambassador Chen stood before the Galactic Council, giving a presentation on human naval architecture. She was the sister of the admiral who had defended Earth, and she had become humanity's chief engineering diplomat. You've all adopted aspects of our design philosophy, she said. You've added armor and backup systems. You've compartmentalized your hulls. These are good steps. But you're still missing the key element. And what is that? High Chancellor Vexron asked. He had recovered from his injuries at Earth, though his scales still bore scars from the decompression. The mindset, Chen replied. You're adding redundancy because it works. We add redundancy because we assume we'll need it. You see backup systems as insurance. We see them as necessities. You hope they'll never be used. We know they will be. She displayed 2 ships side by side. One Council built with human modifications. One human built from the start. Your ship has 2 power generators where it used to have 1. Good. Our ship has 4, with completely separate fuel supplies and different connection points. Your ship has reinforced the armor in critical areas. Good. Our ship has the same armor thickness everywhere because we assume hits will come from unexpected angles. You're learning to survive, Chen said. We're born knowing how. It's in our culture, our history, our DNA. We crawled out of a death world where everything tried to kill us. We built civilizations that collapsed and rebuilt them. We faced extinction dozens of times and kept going. Survival isn't a strategy for us. It's who we are, she smiled slightly. But you're learning, and that's good. Because the galaxy is a dangerous place, and being able to take a punch is sometimes more important than being able to throw one. High Chancellor Vexron stood slowly. Ambassador Chen, I must ask. If we adopt all your methods, build our ships your way, train our crews your way, will we be as unstoppable as you? Chen considered the question carefully. Your ships will be tougher. Your crews will be better prepared. You'll survive fights you would have lost before. But will you be like us? She shook her head. That takes generations. You need to internalize the paranoia, embrace the redundancy, accept that failure is always coming. You need to stop seeing disaster as unlikely and start seeing it as inevitable. But here's the good news, she added. You don't need to be exactly like us. You just need to be tougher than you were, and you're already doing that. 6 months ago, the Council would have been devastated by any major attack. Now you could probably take a hit and keep functioning. That's progress. She closed her presentation with one final thought. My brother has a saying. The ship that wins isn't always the strongest or the fastest. It's the one that's still fighting when everyone else has quit. Build that ship. Train that crew. Embrace that mindset and you'll survive whatever comes next. As the council members filed out, discussing modifications and training programs, Vexron approached Ambassador Chen. Your people have changed the galaxy in 6 months, he said. I wonder what you'll do with more time. Chen looked at him steadily. Hopefully, we'll teach you to be so tough that we never have to fight again. Because the best battle is the one you don't have to fight because everyone knows they can't win it. Vexron's scales rippled in what might have been laughter. Unstoppable ships as peacekeepers. There's an irony there. There is, Chen agreed, but it's better than the alternative. The warning came without ceremony. A simple message broadcast across every frequency, in every language from the edge of known space. Consume, expand, repeat. Admiral Sarah Chen, now promoted to Supreme Commander of the Combined Defense Fleet, studied the message in her ready room aboard the flagship Indomitable II. The name was deliberate, honoring the colony ship that had started everything 2 years ago. That's all they said? She asked Chief Analyst Threlnox, who had requested this urgent meeting. That's all they ever say. Threlnox replied, her wings trembling slightly. The Void Collective. They've destroyed 12 galaxies before reaching ours. They don't negotiate. They don't communicate beyond that message. They simply consume everything in their path and move on. Chen pulled up the data Threlnox had brought. Reconnaissance drones had captured footage of the collective's approach. Thousands of ships, all identical, moving in perfect coordination. They looked like dark crystals, absorbing light rather than reflecting it. Beautiful in a terrifying way. Their strategy is overwhelming first strike, Threlnox explained. They analyze enemy defenses, calculate the exact force needed to destroy them in the opening attack, then apply that force. They've never needed a second wave, ever. How many ships are they bringing? 10,000, Chen whistled softly. And how many do we have? The Combined Defense Fleet has 800 ships now. Human vessels make up 200 of those. The rest are council ships with human modifications. So we're outnumbered more than 12 to 1. Chen leaned back in her chair. Great odds. Threlnox's translator struggled with the sarcasm, but she understood the meaning. Commander, I've studied the collective's tactics extensively. They've perfected the art of the killing blow. One massive strike that removes all resistance instantly. Their weapons are devastating. Their calculations precise. They don't make mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes, Chen said, not them. In 3,000 recorded encounters, they've never lost a single ship. They arrive, they calculate, they attack, they win. It's mathematical perfection. Chen stood and walked to the viewport. Outside, the combined fleet was assembling. Ships from 40 different species, all bearing the marks of human influence. Thick armor, redundant systems, compartmentalized hulls. They looked ready for war. Here's the thing about perfection, Chen said quietly. It's brittle. It only works when everything goes according to plan. Humans? We plan for nothing going according to plan. She turned back to Threlnox. Tell the council I'm implementing strategy Epsilon. Threlnox's antennae shot up in alarm. But that strategy it's insane. It deliberately puts our fleet in a vulnerable position. Exactly. The collective will analyze our defenses and calculate the force needed to destroy them. We're going to make sure their calculations are wrong. 2 days later, the combined fleet assembled at the Barrier Nebula, a vast cloud of gas and dust that marked the edge of council space. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of the Indomitable II, surrounded by holographic displays showing the entire fleet. All ships, this is Chen. You know what's coming. The Void Collective has destroyed everything in its path for 1,000 years. They're perfect at what they do. Perfectly calculating. Perfectly efficient. Perfectly deadly. She paused, looking at the faces on her screen. Human faces. Kaleshi faces. Rex faces. Trell faces. All scared. All determined. But perfect means predictable. They do the same thing every time because it always works. They'll scan our defenses, calculate the exact force needed to overwhelm us and hit us with everything they've got. One massive alpha strike designed to end the battle before it begins. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to give them a target they can't resist. We're going to look vulnerable. And when they commit everything to destroying us, We're going to show them what happens when perfect planning meets stubborn reality. The Void Collective arrived exactly when predicted. 10,000 dark ships materialized at the edge of the system, their forms seeming to drink in the light of nearby stars. For several minutes, they simply observed, scanning the combined fleet's position. On the bridge of the Indomitable II, Sensors Officer Lieutenant Park called out readings. They're analyzing our formations, our power signatures, our defensive positions. Wait, they're dividing their fleet. Looks like they're committing 8,000 ships to the main attack. The other 2,000 are moving to cut off escape routes. Perfect, Chen said. They've calculated we need 8,000 ships to guarantee our destruction. They're not even keeping a reserve because they don't think they'll need one. High Chancellor Vexron, now serving as Chen's second-in-command, clicked his mandibles nervously. Admiral, they're moving into attack position. This is it. All ships, shields to maximum. Prepare to take damage. Remember your training. When it comes, it's going to hurt. But we're built to survive hurt. The Void Collective attacked with precise coordination. 8,000 ships fired simultaneously, their weapons carving through space like dark lightning. The combined fleet's shields flared brilliant white as they absorbed the incredible energy, and failed, just as Chen knew they would. The weapons struck armor and hull directly. Ships shuddered under the impact. Whole sections of armor boiled away under the assault. Breaches appeared. Systems failed. The damage was catastrophic and insufficient. The Void Collective's calculation had been perfect for fighting normal fleets. Fleets that relied primarily on shields. Fleets that would be crippled when those shields failed. They had calculated the exact force needed to overwhelm standard defenses. But these weren't standard defenses anymore. Damage report. Chen called out. Reports flooded in from across the fleet. Every ship was damaged, some severely, but they were all still fighting. The armor had absorbed what the shields couldn't. The redundant systems kept power flowing. The compartmentalized hulls prevented single breaches from dooming entire vessels. They hurt us, Chen said, watching the tactical display. But we're still here. Now it's our turn. All ships, return fire. 800 ships unleashed everything they had. Railguns fired solid tungsten slugs at relativistic speeds. Missiles by the thousands streaked toward the collective fleet. Human-designed kinetic weapons, simple and brutal, crossed the space between the fleets. The Void Collective tried to evade, but they had committed everything to their alpha strike. They were out of position, their perfect formation now a liability. The kinetic weapons punched through their crystalline hulls like hammers through glass. Collective ships began to explode. 10, 20, 50, 100. Their perfect coordination fell apart as vessels tried to retreat, only to collide with others. They had never faced an enemy that survived their opening strike. They had no plan for what came next. They're confused, Vexron observed with savage satisfaction. They don't know what to do. That's what happens when you're perfect, Chen said. You've never had to adapt. You've never had to improvise. You've never lost, so you don't know how to handle losing. She opened a channel to the entire fleet. All ships, press the attack. Don't give them time to regroup. Make them pay for every meter of space. The combined fleet surged forward, still absorbing damage but dealing out far more. Human dreadnoughts tanked hits that would destroy lesser vessels and kept firing. Kaleshi cruisers, their elegant curves now covered in practical armor, worked in teams to overwhelm collective defenses. Vrex destroyers, fast and now much tougher, swarmed isolated enemy ships. The 2,000 collective ships meant to cut off escape routes tried to rejoin the main battle, but they were too far away. The combined fleet destroyed 3,000 enemy vessels before they could arrive. When they did arrive, they found a fleet that was battered but unbroken. Ships with missing sections still fought on backup power. Vessels trailing atmosphere continued firing their weapons. Crews that should have been dead kept fighting from sealed compartments. The Void Collective, for the first time in their history, faced an impossible situation. They had used their perfect strategy. It had failed. And they had no backup plan because they had never needed one. Admiral Chen watched as confusion spread through the collective fleet. Ships began withdrawing individually instead of in formation. Their coordination collapsed. Their mathematical precision turned to chaos. All ships maintain pursuit. Keep the pressure on. Don't let them reorganize. The battle raged for 3 more hours. The combined fleet lost 120 ships, each one fighting to the last. But the Void Collective lost 9,000. The remaining 1,000 ships fled in disorder, their perfect record shattered. On the bridge of the Indomitable 2, Chen finally allowed herself to breathe. Around her, the crew was cheering. Across the fleet, similar celebrations were happening. They had faced extinction and survived. They had beaten an enemy that had never been beaten before. "Admiral Chen," Threlnok said softly, "you did it. You stopped them." "We stopped them," Chen corrected. "Every ship, every crew, every species. We survived together." Vexron approached, his scales showing colors Chen had learned meant respect. "Admiral, I owe you an apology. When we first met humans, I thought you were primitives, barbarians with crude ships and outdated weapons. I was wrong." "You weren't wrong," Chen said. "Our ships are crude. Our weapons are outdated. Our designs are inefficient. But we're still here because we built everything expecting to lose. We armored our ships expecting shields to fail. We trained our crews expecting systems to break. We planned for disaster and then figured something worse would happen." She looked at the tactical display, showing the scattered wreckage of the collective fleet. The Void Collective was perfect. They had perfect weapons, perfect strategy, perfect execution, and it worked every time because everyone they fought tried to match their perfection. They tried to have better shields, better weapons, better tactics. "We didn't try to be better," Chen continued. "We just tried to survive. We built ships that refused to die. We trained crews that refused to quit. We embraced our imperfection and made it our strength." High Chancellor Vexron transmitted a message to the entire combined fleet. "This day will be remembered as the day the galaxy learned to fight back, not with superior technology or greater numbers, but with pure stubborn refusal to give up. The humans taught us this. They taught us that sometimes the best ship isn't the strongest or the fastest or the most advanced. It's the one that's still fighting when everyone else has stopped." He paused, then added with what sounded like pride, "They taught us to build ships that are fucking unstoppable." Chen smiled at that. The phrase had become famous throughout the galaxy, a symbol of human engineering philosophy, of survival over elegance, of function over form, of refusing to die no matter what the odds said. "Send a message to the remaining collective ships," Chen ordered. "Tell them they're welcome to return to Council space if they come in peace. Tell them we'll defend our home against any threat. But tell them also that we prefer peace to war, cooperation to conflict. We're stubborn, but we're not stupid." As the message was sent, Chen looked at her battered fleet, ships held together by backup systems and sheer determination, crews exhausted but triumphant, a combined force from dozens of species united by a common philosophy: build tough, plan for disaster, and never give up. "You know what the funny thing is?" Chen said to Vexron. 2 years ago, you came to Earth demanding we surrender. Now we're all fighting together, using human tactics and human engineering to save the galaxy." Vexron's scales rippled, and what Chen had learned was Vrek's laughter. "The universe has a sense of humor. We came to conquer you and ended up learning from you instead." "That's humanity in a nutshell," Chen said. "We're too stubborn to conquer and too useful to ignore. We make terrible enemies and surprisingly good allies, all because we assume everything will break and plan accordingly." She looked at Earth on a distant monitor, that blue marble that had produced a species crazy enough to build ships that refused to die. "Our planet tried to kill us for millions of years. We survived by being tougher than we had any right to be. Now we've taught the galaxy the same lesson. Sometimes survival is just being too stubborn to die." Lieutenant Park called from the sensor station. "Admiral, we're getting messages from across the galaxy. Everyone's asking about the battle. They want to know how we won." Chen thought about it for a moment. "Tell them the truth. Tell them we won because we lost. Because we expected to lose. Because we built everything assuming disaster was coming. The Void Collective was perfect and perfection is brittle. We were imperfect and imperfection is flexible. We bent, we broke, but we didn't shatter." She stood up, looking at the combined fleet on the view screen. "Tell them humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy wasn't advanced technology or superior weapons. It was teaching everyone that it's okay to take damage, okay to fail, okay to barely survive. What matters is that you keep going, that you stay in the fight, that you refuse to give up no matter how bad it looks. Tell them," Chen said with a smile, "that sometimes the best strategy is just being too damn stubborn to know when you're beaten." Across the galaxy, the message spread. The Void Collective, unstoppable for 1,000 years, had been stopped. Not by superior technology or greater numbers, but by fleets that refused to die when they were supposed to. By ships built to survive instead of to impress. By crews trained to keep fighting when systems failed. The galactic motto changed. Where once it was about elegance and efficiency, now it was simple. Build it tough. Expect it to break. Keep fighting anyway. Or as humans put it with their usual directness, build ships that are fucking unstoppable. And the galaxy did.